economy at the national, regional, global level, or a sector of the economy, or even a particular business. We often spend too much time looking at the troubles, which, in my own thinking, drains energy. At any time there are challenges, there are also opportunities therein. So the important thing, therefore, for professionals is to train their minds and their eyes to locate opportunities within the challenges, or let me call it the milieu of challenges. So I will do this keynote quickly, it may be about 10 minutes, because my job, I believe, is to raise the key issues for us to further interrogate during the panel conversations. So, I came across about 2 years ago, and I found very useful in setting the context of any discussion in this dispensation we are in. We all make choices, and in the end, our choices make us. Which means choices should be well reasoned and also calculated, where we identify what opportunities there are and what risks are also embedded in those opportunities. The better we master the risks and therefore design strategies for managing them, the easier it gets for us in exploiting the opportunities. A choice to be here for 8 o'clock. There's a choice not to be something else. And of course, equally, when it comes to volatility, I interpret it simply this way, that it is usually the outcome of swift and often unpredictable changes in the conduct, that is what people do, their behavior, or in the choices they make, or the decisions they make that are totally unexpected. And of course, typically, we also say such changes as I go up further, which is let me hold for now. If you take the corollary of a buyer, similarly, a buyer is circumspect about buying, wondering whether trading prices could go down further, or in fact, make an upturn. So now, that is what we find in the volatile environment. Nobody is sure what will happen the next minute. So making a decision and making a choice becomes an arduous task. Now, an investor with a portfolio of real estate assets even faces more challenging decision options, depending on the types of assets and the locations of those assets. So then, we now come to the fact that volatility is so more worrisome for entities, and the number of brands have been announced here in terms of sponsorship along with Wemabod. Now, these entities are real estate business, no matter where they are located on the value chain, which means even beyond the brands mentioned, everyone with a stake in the real estate sector finds himself, herself, or itself as a corporate entity somewhere along that value chain. And these are the decisions and challenges that actually come with volatility. Now, tracking and studying market volatility increases the chances of successful hedging. And that, of course, of the extended risks it causes, and that is what real estate players do very well. It is only government functionaries that are schooled on the strategic place of real estate in the economy that can relate with the major problem that a volatile or shrinking real estate means for an economy that is desperately in need of inclusive growth. And I say that advisedly also, looking at the history of financial crisis dating over 800 years, and of course, looking at the last 100 years thereabout of financial and economic crisis, and what has played out stunning data for almost 100 years. When you look at real estate market and look at the stock market, data has proven that if you are fixed on an economy you want to grow in an inclusive manner, then what is happening in real estate should be of more interest to you than the stock market. Data has confirmed that the contraction in real estate will make the economy contract by twice the contraction a collapse of the stock market causes. So that is important for government functionaries to understand. As such, the volatile real estate market or sector is of huge significance and needs attention. I got a new snippet late yesterday with me, early this morning, about what is happening internationally. Two major drivers of the oil market globally, as I yesterday, and what is going on in the Middle East, geopolitical effects on the oil market. The second one is what is happening to the Chinese economy, especially the decision by the People's Bank of China 2 days ago to readjust the mortgage rate, the policy rate for mortgage lending, and that is down from 4.25% to about 3.9%, and that is in the understanding that making real estate more affordable is in fact a key factor in re-energizing the Chinese economy this year. Now, in my own interpretation, it suggests that we interrogate the causes of the sector volatility and of course the implications of that and how stakeholders can ride the tiger. And my suspicion is that Wemabod has done very well by bringing this up for today's discourse. So let me now move on to what is happening globally. I call it global volatility. Where and what? Of course, this time last year, we were talking about 5 volatility as global disruptions, possible volatility. As of today, we're looking at 8 major global disruptions. And of course, I won't go into the details of each of them because we are very familiar with them. The Ukraine war, very interesting appellation. Russia invasion of Ukraine, that was the first announcement. Then it turned to Russia-Ukrainian war. Then later it became Russian war on Ukraine. And now we just commonly refer to it as Ukraine war. That is still, of course, having some issues developed. France and Germany made some decisions this week to support Ukraine, and that is also playing out. And now this war is playing out globally. Okay, thank you. Now, of course, the pandemic, we thought we had mastered it and now understood it so well. Until in the last 2 weeks, we started hearing news about COVID-23. Okay, which means there's a new variant of COVID that has been labeled as COVID-23 that now health professionals globally are worried about and also trying to plot and track. Macroeconomic instability, most worried part is inflation. Of course, for Nigeria, the big elephant in the room is the exchange rate. I'm commenting about that shortly. Social devices, of course, misinformation, disinformation, driven largely by social media. Then we have geopolitics, which of course is playing out in several different dimensions. Climate change is a major issue all over the world. And of course, that again is playing out in insecurity and is affecting practically every aspect of our lives. Then the BRICS Plus, started as BRICS with small letter S, expanded to BRICS with capital letter S, bringing in South Africa as a member, and then recently so many countries, about 55, as of October 2023, applied to join BRICS. Of course, conversation about the possibility of a BRICS bank and then how that will play out. Something is important to mention here, and that is my own interpretation. As at the end of October 2023, BRICS approved that 6 countries should join them by January this year. Now, out of the 6 countries, when we got to January this year, only 5 formally now joined. One of them backed out, and that's Argentina. Why did Argentina back out? Similar situation we're having in Nigeria. Inflation very high. Of course, for Argentina, way beyond Nigeria as well. Because the inflation rate for Argentina as of December 2023 was 211%. The Osman FX crisis, like Nigeria has corrected. And of course, December 23, IMF offered Argentina $4.7 billion bailout. In my own thinking, I saw it as a trade-off. Take this $1.7 billion to help you, and then sign off from joining BRICS Plus. That's my interpretation. And so Argentina withdrew his application to join the BRICS Plus, and of course got the $4.7 billion support from IMF. Now, if you look at the real estate sector index, you see the 2 charts I have here. S&P 500 real estate sector index, then S&P Dow Jones US real estate sector index. within the last 1 year. And this was the data as at 4:50 p.m. Friday, 16th of February, and of course, for Dow Jones, 16th February. And you can see within the space of 1 year how the index has performed, or let me say behaved. It's better to interpret it as behavior. Which of course illustrates straight line using data, the volatility in the real estate sectors. Now, interpreting disruptions and volatility. How do these disruptions affect the supply chain of inputs to housing construction? Then, secondly, what influence does macroeconomic instability in particular have on housing delivery, trading, and maintenance? All right? And of course, that sets us to also ask what risks are in volatility, and then are there opportunities in volatility, which of course is what the panelists will trash for us this morning. The illustration, just a simple one. During a post-COVID period, demand shifted in the real estate sector globally, especially in the advanced countries, and created sellers market in some jurisdictions. But now we are past COVID and we have entered what we call the new normal. Of course, some of us talk about the next normal, all right? Inflationary pressures and rising mortgage rates are pushing the buyer's market. In which case, volatility on the one hand drove sellers market immediately post-COVID. But as of today, inflationary pressures all over the world and high mortgage rates are driving buyers market, and it's putting pressure on those who trade in real estate. So, as a kind of overview, I will skip it because everyone will get a copy of my slides. So let me now come to the sector issues, just to highlight this as well. The of Wemabod told us earlier in this address that the dynamics of the environment for real estate shows a number of critical things we should pay attention to. One, coming home to Nigeria, our estimated population, whereas at June 2023, are 223.8 million people. Of course, as at today, it's estimated to be almost at 228 million people. Our growth rate is 2.44% currently. But the interesting thing about the Nigerian population is, number one, it is the 6th largest in the world. Growth rate is also at a rate that can double the population between now and 2050 and take us to become number 3 in the world. That's on one side. But on a daily basis, there is rapid urban migration, that is rural-urban migration. So apart from the effect of climate change, the attractiveness of urban areas is also placing Nigeria among the top 10 countries in the world in terms of rural-urban migration. So the population in urban centers is growing rapidly. Lagos is a peculiar case where we have been able to track down to the hour how many people come into Lagos every hour without an intention of returning to where they came from. Okay, so that's an implication for real estate, and that is why also you see a large number of slums developing. The question there will be, what do you make of those slums? Are there opportunities within that space? I will rest that for the panelists. Then the age distribution of that population. Bottom heavy when you talk about the pyramid, because you are looking at a population that has median age of 17.2 years, and that's quite very, very low. When you compare with some other countries, and I pick only 2 just to illustrate. China has an aging population, and so you can interplay what the government of China did in terms of trying to strengthen real estate, because most Chinese, by their culture, they believe real estate is where they can reserve and protect value. And when that sector is threatened, ordinarily it means the economy will struggle. And by the way, pre-COVID, real estate sector in China accounted for 34% of GDP. Post-COVID, dropped to 31%. And that is why their government is always desperate to see whatever they can do to stimulate investment in real estate in China. Now, median age in China, 38 years. India is the new superpower, coming up in terms of ICT and also in terms of the right economic policies. that has rapidly converting India into a place to invest. And that's why the Indian government terms it make in India. In which case, we are not talking about made in India. It's about make in India. We make India conducive for investors in whichever sector you want to consider. So now, for India, India is 28 years. So much younger than China. Of course, and India racking up with a 7% growth rate of GDP this year is also seen as a sector, an economy to consider. Now let's come back home, and that is talking about what is happening in Nigeria. But I'll pay attention to the first two of them. But that's where the real trouble is. Okay? Now, first subsidy removal for me is not debatable. Because spending $10.7 billion annually to pay for subsidy that you are not even sure about where it goes to. Of course, conceptually in economics, there's nothing wrong with subsidy. The subsidy that doesn't incentivize production, obviously, is misdirected. A subsidy scheme where also there are leakages points to the fact that the benefits are not getting to the target beneficiaries. So that needed to be dealt with. But when it comes to exchange rate unification, that's where, in my own position as a professional economist, and with every sense of responsibility, I don't think that is the way Nigeria should go. And my reason is very simple. I've been privileged to intervene in policy advocacy on exchange rate management in Nigeria for close to 25 years now. And I remember vividly sounding a note of warning to the management of Central Bank of Nigeria in November 2002. This is the 22nd year after that note of warning. Now, when you look at our data from independence, let's not go before. And that's also underlying the fact that the data are really on Nigeria, even pre-independence. So those who want to be lazy will tell you there's no data. And when you prove to them that there's data, you challenge integrity. And I always tell them that even if you challenge integrity, if there is data that is poor quality, it is still superior to no data behind the analysis. Okay? Now, when I looked at the data up until November 2002, the 1 year I started to a central bank was that 3 major prices of concern to any central or reserve bank in the world: inflation rate, exchange rate, and of course interest rate. And I said, looking at the data, clearly there was a particular one among them that everything in Nigeria reacts to. And it was very easy to pick out the exchange rate. And of course, when we unified the exchange rate in June 2023, I saw it as ill-advised, and I made that very clear. Because data and historical occasions have proven one thing. That number one, we are an import-dependent economy. That's the truth of it. Now, some analysts might tell you we are not even importing enough relative to our population, relative to our GDP. That's a matter of playing with numbers. Because every ratio we talk about is playing two things against each other: the numerator and the denominator. Any of them changes, the ratio will change. Alright? And comparing ratios also can be misleading. If you compare Kenya and let's say Ghana with Nigeria, you are looking at bases that are bigger in Nigeria. And so if the top is bigger than the top in Ghana, then of course relative terms is smaller. We now tell me that Nigeria is not importing enough. So for me, let me say, stay with the academia. We call it dubious analysis. Okay, that's working from the answer back to the question, instead of a question to the answer. Now, the reality is the factors that move exchange rates. And then we ask ourselves, where are the equation of those factors today in Nigeria? Now, also, we look at the big place of external reserves. And then we interrogate that and say, okay, how much do we have in the pocket? When you allow the market forces, the interplay of demand and supply, which is just one out of 12 factors that should move the exchange value of the currency, to now be a matter of willing buyer, willing seller, against our culture. What we likely get is a perennial loss of value by the local currency. And why do I say that? It is very simple. Now, The currency of any country plays four basic roles. Use money to make purchases, use money to pay expenses, use money to ensure security, and then you also invest money. Okay? But when you look at our economy today, unfortunately, Naira is the legal tender. Then we have dollarized the economy in such a way that the US dollar plays far beyond those four traditional rules of money. So now, we not only use pricing services, pricing assets, we also use it now as a hedge. But as a hedge, it also plays several different roles. Hedge against inflation, hedge against the exchange value of the Naira, hedge against insecurity. So it has gone beyond the four traditional roles money should play. Unfortunately, it is played that role in a jurisdiction that doesn't belong to you. Let's look at the pockets. And I always cite China. When you check the external reserves of countries around the world, China is always number one. At the time, China had over $3 trillion external reserves, but they never floated their currency. The US doesn't need big external reserves because we all use their currency for everything. Go check the data. External reserves for the US is always moving between 160, 170, 180 billion dollars to maybe 122 at the maximum. Go and check that in the last 10 years. So they don't need deep pocket of external reserves because the rest of us in the world we use the US dollar for international trade, and the aberration in Nigeria now, where we have dollarized our economy. So the way it goes, therefore, is that for me is the big elephant in the room. Yes, no doubt, our inflation rate is inching towards 30%, and we are projected that probably will settle at 23.47% end of the year. But unless we take some hard decisions, now let me put it in context this way, and I respect you for that, is bold and also confident, all right? But when we bring the word courage into that, courage is what it needs at this point in time to look at a particular policy that is not working and have the courage enough to say, look, we need to correct this. Governments all around the world make corrections to policies that are not working. If the outcome of a policy is not giving you what you expect, you go back to it for what they call regulatory impact analysis, RIA. Means that anytime you introduce a regulation, if it's not producing the right effect, you return to the drawing board. You analyze the impact and then make adjustments. I think it's in time for us to adjust our policy on exchange rate management. As at yesterday, the dollar was already knocking on the door of 2,000 Naira to the dollar. When Economic Intelligence Unit predicted that 4 months ago, I challenged and said, never. Naira can't get 2,000 Naira to the dollar. This whole outlook is nonsense. That was my reaction as a professional economist. But looking at what the market is saying now, I'm beginning to wonder that even the 2,000 Naira to the dollar they predicted is something that might happen within this first quarter of the year. Meanwhile, their whole outlook was for end of the year. So now, that's on the one side. So the question then is, if we don't have sufficient results in the pocket to pay our import bills, which of course later data available put at 1.88 trillion Naira a month. Dollar equivalent using the world rate anyway is $2.303 billion a month that we need to pay for imports. So now, the other area where I think policy needs to be corrected to deal with this, and the challenge we are facing generally with prices of all commodities, is the reference exchange rate for computing import duties. This year, and this is just February, the central bank has advised the customs changes to that rate 4 times already. This is mid-February. So which means then that for an import-dependent economy, where you keep marking up, then that's sorry about that, it's actually allowed to warn me that I should stop talking. But I'm talking too much. I said it to guide my time management. So that essentially, the key issue here is to ensure that When certain things are working contrary to expectation, we should return to the drawing board, interrogate the issues, and make necessary corrections. If you are independent and you keep marking up the exchange rate for competing import duties, you are piling more costs on anything imported, and of course, whether you like it or not, it will pass through to the final consumer. And that is what is creating inflationary pressures and the heat we are feeling all over the place. So if you bring it home to real estate, the question then is, how are these developments impacting building materials to start with? An investor interested in development of new real estate assets, of course, we naturally want to hold back. Now, for foreign investors that we think will be attracted when the naira is floated, they also see that volatility as something that is not attractive. For a portfolio investor, there are three basic things considered. The first is safety of the principal. The second is the return. The third one is liquidity. With the liquidity now comes to, if I bring in my dollars to invest in Nigeria now, when my investment matures, will there be liquidity enough for me to take it out? So those are the things we must put into consideration. Also not monetary policy. So when if they choose to maintain the rate where it is, the question then will be, how do we deal with the challenge of money outside the banking system? 3.4 trillion naira outside the banking system. Okay, so how do we deal with that? How do we deal with money supply? It's money of tens of trillions of naira and several other challenges. So for me, the central bank governor currently of Nigeria has the most difficult job in the world. So, and of course, capital importation, yes, interesting. The fourth quarter of 2023, the data just came out, showed that, oh, there was an upturn in capital inflows into Nigeria. Very interesting. One of the 12 factors that caused exchange rates to move, we call it capital flows. Okay? So, yes, more money came into Nigeria, but when you now pay it, you find that 59% of the inflows was actually news. So which means it is not so much as the preferred one FDIs, and even the one that can bail you out in a time of emergency like this, which is portfolio investment, is not also big in that number. So that means there are still some things we need to interrogate and change in our policy environment to make portfolio investments to come. And my recommendation is, of course, the panelists will also deal with this issue, that we need to fix the exchange rate officially within a defined band. If we continue with the present practice of floating the naira, you can simply say that it will float to the heavens. So let me conclude this. More will come for the panel discussion. As I said, I will just scroll through so you see that I have here a lot of data interpretation that we can look at, in your own spare time. So a summary of the Finance Act signed when President Buhari was about leaving office, which of course becomes of effect now. Also, of course, what are the drivers of the act? What do we expect? All of this will keep changing. Because in our own expectation, we look at value market average for the year, we set to at 1485. But that is premised on some assumptions. One of which is that as a government that is dynamic and responsive to interpreting what is happening, and therefore responding to the second quarter. Which means by the time we get to the end of March, we interrogate the drivers of outlook and then form a new one that we'll be discussing thereafter. So there is also what Wemabod has done very well for us, and that is asking what to do. What should you do? So which we put here in 3 plans. Between now and June, that is the first half of this year, what are the things for you to do? Remember I said at the beginning, if you pay attention more to problems and challenges, it will paralyze you. But when you look out for opportunities, you get energized. And so what should you then do with your own business? And that is, it's important to intensify digitization. And of course, I said the impact of the policy shifts on your customers, your assets and liabilities. Intensify communication with your customers. The same way, in my own view, as a professional economist, the government and its top functionaries need to communicate more with Nigerians. Tell them the real state of things so that they understand why things are happening the way they are. Not second-guessing you and misinterpreting what is happening because there's a whole lot of things being put around on social media. Of course, lifestyles across all resource spectrum. That's already happening. In fact, I learned that yesterday in UK there was rampant redundancies, and of course, downsizing, let me put it that way. I won't mention the name of this professional service company. It's a consultancy, one of the top 5 in the world. The particular department, the IT department, ICT of this practice, I learned yesterday they sacked all the staff in that department, they take only 3. So I told myself, if you practice that big, top 5 in the world, we will retrain that kind of number. And I hear the same is happening all around in Britain, the economics in recession. Of course, Japan also entered recession last week. So we see some other countries enter the same. And that's why it's important for us to challenge ourselves in Nigeria. What needs to change to ensure that our economy doesn't go into recession? And it's a big challenge for us. And of course,
to the theme of navigating volatility in the real estate market, opportunities and threats. In today's dynamic scale of the real estate market, I characterize it by ever-changing trends and challenges. Volatility has become a constant companion, presenting both opportunities and threats to industry players. However, it is during times of uncertainty that true leadership and engagement shine. As we gather here today, let us recognize the importance of adaptability, resilience in navigating these turbulent waters. While volatility may bring about challenges, it also opens doors to new opportunities and avenues for growth. It is imperative that we approach these challenges with a forward-thinking mindset, leveraging our collective expertise and experience to uncover opportunities and meet uncertainty. One of the key opportunities lies in embracing technological advancement and digital transformation within the real estate sector, from virtual property beings to blockchain-based transactions. Technology offers us the tools to streamline processes, enhance efficiency, and reach a wider audience. Furthermore, we must remain vigilant of the threats posed by the volatility, including economic downturns, regulatory changes, and geopolitical instability. By staying informed and proactive, we can better anticipate and mitigate these risks, safeguarding our investments and preserving long-term value. As we embark on this journey together, let us remember the importance of collaboration and knowledge sharing by fostering an environment of innovation and cooperation. We can collectively navigate the challenges ahead and unlock the full potential of real estate market. In conclusion, I'm confident that with our shared vision, resilience and determination, we will not only weather the storms of our volatility, but emerge stronger and more resilient than ever before. But before I end this, I want to thank our keynote speaker today, Dr. Viola Edipe, for being there for us today. I want to thank Mr. Bode Adetiji, Nani Oseni Iskele, and our own Mrs. Olajumoke Akinwumi for being accepted to be panelists and joining in trying to solve this issue. I thank you all for your unwavering support, and I look forward to the insightful discussions and collaborations that will ensue throughout this event. But I believe that by the time we finish, we should be able to navigate through the proper challenge. And the community at the end of it will probably help us in the real estate business. I wish you good luck and God bless. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Are we colonizing in Nigeria? We should condemn what we have. I wear my beautiful Nigerian fabric. Everything I want is made in Nigeria. But I'm not sure about my shoes yet. But if we encourage the local manufacturers, Nigeria and invest in our country. Otherwise, we don't have to import what you are buying. So I think it's time to take those hard decisions and believe in those decisions collectively as a nation. So in terms of diaspora and investment, like the MC said, we've been partnering with Wemabod, and it's been a good partnership. And we keep encouraging the diaspora that this is the time to invest in real estate in Nigeria. And I believe we are making an impact. But with conversations like this, and I also want to say that we should have more conversations like this. So we hope that still partnering with Wemabod, we can have a conversation with the diaspora, bring them on the table. And that is why part of the people represented us there is Onikan, Adebayo, who's in the audience, and we work with her in terms of everything real estate. So the diaspora can play a pivotal role in real estate investment. And real estate, as we heard from our keynote speakers, is a profitable investment option for them. And it's a wealth management thing. By investing in real estate in Nigeria, even as it is now, it's not charity. It's a good investment. And we keep encouraging them to do that. And on our part, what we're trying to do as a commission is also encourage them with mortgage. So we're working with the Federal Mortgage Bank of Nigeria to say, for the diaspora, you can get a 50 million mortgage loan. So you can, for instance, buy a Wemabod house. You may not get a Wemabod house for 50 billion naira. It's going to be much more than that. But we give you an energizing platform. With that, it will be like a way to get them to bring more money into the economy and invest more in the economy in real estate. Because the money is tied to the property. So if you're going to buy a property from Wemabod, you put in your 50 million naira mortgage and you fund the rest yourself, and then you pay back the loan. And the beauty about it is just 6.9% interest rate, not the regular one you get from other banks. So we believe this will encourage them. We're going to introduce it formally sometime in April. It will start in the UK, and we invite Wemabod and all of you here to be part of it and join us as we start what I believe will be very motivational and will change a lot of dynamics in terms of diaspora investment in the real estate sector in Nigeria. And then as we've heard, there will be a lot of returns and opportunities just to be created. We have abundant natural resources, and these returns have the potential to yield a lot of returns in the economy. And for the diaspora, there's no better time than now to do this and invest in their country. And I think can generate employment opportunities, stimulate economic growth, and enhance local expertise. So it is crucial that we establish an enabling environment that promotes transparency, accountability, and ease of doing business. Let's face it, we need to remove the headaches when it comes to investing in Nigeria and ensure that we make it a bit easier for anybody coming in, whether it's the diaspora or any other investor. But we believe that the diaspora, we can be talking about diaspora direct investment as we go in Nigeria. The place to go is the real estate industry. So I don't want to, I think we've heard a lot of the speeches, we've heard so much here, and we also want to encourage the issue of diaspora fund. We did a $300 million some time ago. We can do much more than that this year. I've told you about the mortgage scheme that we're coming up with, and the diaspora housing program, for which Wemabod is a part of. Now, also with the Federal Housing Authority, we've got a huge plot of land somewhere in Abuja, where we call the diaspora city, and the diaspora can, through you, come and build their own houses or buy their own land. So there's a lot to do with the real estate business, and we'll be working with Wemabod and other real estate participants. So I just want to conclude by saying thank you, Wemabod, for putting this together. There are many opportunities for the diaspora. We can grow our economy. We can develop the Nigerian economy. We can build our great country. And nobody will do it but ourselves. Government has a role to play. We have our role to play. But the key thing is we have to believe in ourselves. I was listening to some guy who was running the diaspora that be fair to them. Everybody's wanting to bring that. Be fair to them another. But that's not the point. The point is that we are at a time in our country where all hands have to be on deck. And Wemabod, what you've done today is putting all hands on deck, analyzing the situation, providing solutions, and looking at how we can bring out of the woods. But like I said, I'm ending with this point that this is a time when there's a crisis to do things we should have done many years ago. We cannot continue to remain an unproductive economy. What are we exporting? What are we producing? We all rely on the dollar. And even in the real estate sector, I want you all to analyze this, look at it, what can we do more for ourselves? We have so much that we can export, we have so much that we can produce, but the enabling environment also has to be there, and we have to ensure that we become not an import-dependent economy, but an export-oriented economy, and we have to be fair, and take the right decisions within the hard decisions. Thank you very much, and God bless you, and I look forward to the outcome of this program. Thank you very much.
The Nigerian economy as it is today, especially with all headwinds, the macroeconomic challenges, it's not just, I'm not just facing the real estate market, of course, the broader economy. Now, there was a particular point today about the supply chain, and I was wondering, how could we, as real estate developers, participants, industry participants, how can we actually optimize the supply chain strategy in order to make sure that we actually optimize the real estate supply chain strategy in order to ensure that we do not get involved in these economic challenges. For instance, a lot of developments that we have in Nigeria by developers are usually by small and medium-sized developers. But then, not everything that we use are made locally. Some of the things we have to import from Turkey, but the medium developers, the small-scale developers, are now having the ability to actually import a lot of these materials. At the other I will talk about essentially collaboration between small developers, mid-sized developers, or construction companies in importing in bulk some of these materials, so that we essentially benefit from economic scale when we import such materials. We also talked about different asset class, how you can diversify the base, and I believe Mr. President also mentioned that. And you wonder, in Nigeria, when we talk about real estate, we essentially mostly focus on residential. And the truth is, real estate, in a way, I believe in this country, we're sleeping on some asset class that is not as popular. For instance, the industrial real estate sector. With the changes in the macroeconomy, we realize that some of the manufacturers are moving out of the country, for instance, the pharmaceuticals, and they're turning into importers essentially. So real estate sectors like warehousing becomes more important and more crucial to the operations of some of these pharmaceutical companies that left the country as manufacturers and sort of change their business model into becoming importers. So, what I'm trying to say essentially is, in these headwinds, these macroeconomic headwinds, the truth is there are opportunities within the road, and we just have to be innovative and figure out how we can make the best out of the situation that we find ourselves in this macroeconomic challenges. Thank you very much.
Actually, because when it comes to money and finance, let's go to the women who knows how to give money and manage it better than the rest of us who have been there for. Madam, the real estate developers are taking a bit from what Dr. Nibe has provoked us in terms of how to adapt your funding and financing strategies. What's the state in the industry in terms of what is available within, locally, and from without? I know there are a few institutions that provide funding for housing within Africa, that Shelter Africa, for example, and a few others. And now that we have this trilemma of interest rate, inflation rate, and exchange rate, what strategy do you think yourself and the rest of the folks in the industry who are hearing this online can develop very quickly to mitigate this in terms of your property development in the world?
Okay, if I were speaking here, I would say just go run and hide for a bit. But I guess that won't solve the problem. Shelter Flake, who, by the way, has morphed into development finance institution, I guess because they also recognize that there's a bigger role to play outside of just providing financing to projects. Impact has become such a big deal. Now, thankfully, also I'm speaking to developers, right? I was happy that Dr. Onikan handled all the issues with government, fiscal policies and stuff. But I won't leave there without saying something that I share with everyone when I have an opportunity, is to say that it's in this sector, it's either we become the kings or we become the kingmakers. Otherwise, we will continue to have platforms like this engaging, but the necessary things that need to be done to attract investment, to keep investment in country, because it's one thing to attract investment, and it's another thing for that investment to stay in. What we find with a lot of investors, especially those foreign investors, is as soon as they can, they want the money out of this country. Because a few years down the line, we recognize that things are not quite the way they ought to be. But let me answer your questions to developers out there. What are the things that can be done? And I will only speak to those things that are within control. For me, the first thing is this is not the time to start looking for non-local funding. I mean, I think that's obvious, right? But it also means that even with looking for local funding, we have to be a lot more creative than we've ever been. Local funding, typically we would say we've gone to the banks. We all know what that means. In fact, even just getting funding, forget about the issues around valuation, interest rates. Just that process is enough to move things by, you would know, by the number of, we're not talking basis points anymore, it's in leaps and bounds how things are changing. So that's not even working in itself. But internally, I think to start with, we have to start thinking about other ways to fund our projects. We also have to start thinking about projects. They may be huge, but we also have to start thinking about them in, it's like a bowl of eba in front of you. I mean, the intention is not to swallow the bowl, it's to take it in piecemeal. We also have to start thinking that way with our projects. I was going to say that using financial instruments like swaps and hedging, is a good thing, but we've had an experience recently. It doesn't work in situations that we are currently. Runaway inflation is completely, it just simply doesn't work. The exchange rate and the gallops that are happening prevents that from working. But in a normal environment, this is something that effectively works in terms of just hedging our bets for the future. One thing that I was speaking to Chairman about is, for sure, we need to start indexing more seriously. It is pointless to think that things will remain the same because they're not remaining the same. So whether it is in building, we index with our contractors, and we're really open about that. In selling, we index with our investors and our buyers as well. And once this changes, this will be the impact of it on the price. Also, I'm sure that talking about sources of funding, taking money off I don't know if anybody is still trying that now. It is not even the way to go at all, unless it is indexed. So there's a lot of education that needs to happen about the new way of financing and buying real estate. That is up to us to engineer and to start. I think that lastly, I will go back to the issues of funding big dreams and big projects and understanding the need to just make sure that we're able to break them down. Also, we have to be more aware that, look, investors are continuing to look even more aggressively for things that are more than a financial return. So they're looking at you, what are you doing with your green exposures, what are you doing in terms of ESGs and investors. I think what the situation is, this is my own read of it, is at least if we don't make the kind of returns, financial returns, we should be able to boast and brag of the fact that we have impacted positively the environment and that we have made this decent social change. And so that is becoming even more and more important. I will stop there.
Approaches to property development, if we sort of want to capitalize on opportunities in the market that is very volatile and very hot, as we have it right now, are there innovative approaches that you think can be adopted by members of this, by folks in the industry?
Well, thank you so much. I would like to predicate my response by reference to two things. One, who I am, who I think I am, or that for the last 2 months. One is that I am a professional guy. I am a supplier, I am a consumer, and I'm a speculator. And I'm surely talking on top of what I was saying. Actually goes in my profession. Because what we are seeing today, nobody foresaw it. But as Adrian said, we all created it. So anybody who's been alarmed or shocked about what is happening now must re-examine why you should be shocked. There are things that we have done and what we have done. And there are those things that we have left undone that we have done. That's by people. And that will really take us to the question to me. But before I answer directly, I would like a few of my friends are aware of, they are part of that. In the last 3 months, I've been to 4 countries, either for business or leisure or for knowledge. I've been to Saudi Arabia, I've been to Qatar, I've been to Morocco, and I've been to South Africa. What we find that we learn from all these things now is that Nigeria is entering into an era where old knowledge, old practices, old custom, old laws will not help us at all. That's why I respect your question to me that innovation. And if you are the kind of guy looking for innovation, and all you do is just focus on textbook, you won't get there. So my first remark concerning that is that we should now continually seek knowledge. The Bible says, and even Muslims already know that, without knowledge, my people perish. I'm probably one of the oldest guys around you here, but I've passed through recession, minimum 4 times, serious recession, under various regimes. But what we are entering into now, I'm not sure that guy like you can say, we have said it before. When everything converges on the same time. There are 2 items that are missing, but unfortunately it's not here now, which are relevant to my innovation, which are missing in the key speaker's address, who happens to be my own younger brother and friend for the past like 17 years. In fact, he piloted my company to where we are today. These 2 things are things which are very critical to real estate. And before you talk about innovation and you don't pay attention to them, you go wrong. One, in the entire presentation, the role that corruption played in all sectors in general and in real estate sector in particular has not been captured. Because anywhere you go, whether you have been to 4 countries, you find that, all right, they too are primarily corrupt. But when it comes to price determination, market rules and so on and so forth, corruption plays little or no role. Why is that? A guy who stole 1 billion yesterday can offer to pay
200 million naira for what that's just worth 10 million naira. Can you say that's market forces? No. That's no. Then you have mismanagement. Then he mentioned that if we have to actually strengthen some 4 factors like the exchange rate, we have to challenge it. But we have forgotten one thing, that a nation trying to build external reserve can only build it if your bottom line, that is your debt profile, is not already nearing bankruptcy. Nigeria now today is owing a lot of money. So looking at an innovative way of doing this business, I now proceed as follows. There are things I see abroad that when things begin to happen, you analyze them, you use first and foremost the resources, the talent you have in-house to fight your battle. You don't look from outside. What does that mean? Unless we stop talking about using local materials, local technology, which we all do in the last 30, 40 years, and actually go into doing it, which circumstances like this can compel us. There was a time that it was so, so general that we go for this red bricks thing. All of a sudden it came to nothing. The other one is about not doing things just because of ego. I want to build 10-story building. It must be me alone. In Kenya, in South Africa, in Morocco, you see partnership at play. Unless you go into this innovative way of doing things collectively, sharing risk. But because I know the MD of Zeniba, and the MD of First Bank, and so forth, I want to be the sole owner of this 30-story building. In this era, when you carry all the ego, you carry all the liabilities and all the risk.
Mr. Kennedy, just a second. Let me ask a very particular question. If you segment the real estate market into 3, upstream, midstream, and downstream, do you think that you have more players concentrated at a certain part of the strata more than the others, which seem to be creating a bit of a problem? Where do we have the preponderance of players in the industry, and where do you think we need to focus a bit more?
You are probably right about that. We know that the greatest number of deficits we have in the lower level, we want to go there for so many reasons.
It's time for some of you in the industry to widen out. Now, as state governments building flyovers in the middle of the desert or whatever is not needed, and a whole lot of beautiful religious houses that looks like an Airbus 360, whatever. Now, is it possible for some of you to work with the state governments that have deep pockets, whether it's the security force they have, or they have fund that runs into trillions of naira right now? Are you folks on the streets looking to get some of this money into real estate within those state governments? Is that possible?
I have a straight answer to you. There are some critical areas of this sector that private sector initiatives. When things get so turbulent, you depend on a responsible, inclusive government to actually lay down that policy and drive it. When South Africa became independent, majority of the black guys there had no a single land. What are you going to do? The policy came out that was liberalized. So what I would recommend you to do is, instead of my friends, myself, yourself, concentrating on Lagos, Abuja, and so on and so forth, why don't we see a body that will compromise the government there? We have the land, we have no capital. What's the state? I'm from Muson State. We have the land, we have no capital. Is that what you know? Thank you so much.
But I think perhaps we need to use what we have to get what we want, perhaps get us to a certain level, then we can begin to work our way backwards. In terms of sustainable development practices in reducing risk within the sector and getting that to enhance long-term value and all of that, how do you see the industry during times of market volatility, economic depression, near depression as currently happening?
me say thanks to the board and management of Wemabod for inviting me to be part of this discussion. I'm also the president of the Charter Risk Management Institute of Nigeria, so I will also be speaking from that side too. When we talk of sustainable development, we're talking of the action that we take today, the effects of this action on the future, ensuring that making ourselves comfortable today will not endanger the future generation. When we talk of market volatility, we're also talking of the sensitivity of prices to changes in the macroeconomic variables, the political landscape, and other geopolitical issues across the world, and things like that. So if we decide to deploy sustainable development as a tool to protect real estate investments in a volatile economy like we're experiencing right now in Nigeria, where you cannot determine, or it's difficult to determine, prices of goods and services. In the last 1 week, there are a lot of posting charts that you go to ask for the price of cement in the morning, and you tell them you are coming, and an hour later, the price has changed. By the time you go back in the afternoon, it's not the same. It's something we have experienced before. So if you want to deploy sustainable development as a tool in such kind of volatile economy, I believe that for a passionate in real estate, it starts from the development of the conceptual framework of whatever you are trying to do in that sector. For instance, if you think of taking a real estate investment that involves construction, I believe that sustainability should be built into the conceptual framework, whether the architectural design, whether the structural design, or whatever it is, must be that whatever we're putting together today will not endanger the future. The project location, I had this on the identity. Yes, there is land in Osun State. There's also land in my state too as well. but is there markets where you put your structure there, will you be able to realize your investment? It's about investment we're talking about here. So there's land everywhere, but you cannot build estates in a place where they cannot afford it. So for sustainability, location is very key. The project location. It's a source of funding, and I'm glad with what the first speaker said. We need to be innovative in how we source for funding. When you look at the ratings of Nigeria, we are not in any investment rating. Nigeria is regarded by rating, by the rating agencies when you the report. I don't believe the report anyway, but let's go by what they say. Nigeria is a very risky investment destination. We have very innovative in the source of funding. I noted, why can't we, players in the industry, for instance, I don't know whether they are doing crowdfunding now. The money that sits in the current accounts in the banks, any no interest. Can't you develop products that will take those money from the current accounts, bring it to the real estate? The money will generate income within 6 more 1 year. You get the money paid back with interest. So we need to be more innovative. Then again, the project construction that we will put together, how the maintenance, how easy is it for the owners to maintain it? What is the cost of maintenance? So all these are the sustainable development issues we need to consider to de-risk the real estate industry. And again, the target market to the ability and the taste. There's no point you put structures, no matter how good looking it is, and people are not willing to buy because they cannot just afford it. They go there to take pictures and they leave. And they say they're coming back. So how will you be sustainable? So you need to be more innovative in your product design, look at the taste of the market,
and therefore, their ability to also afford what our product put in the market. So, lastly, yes, we teach that. I'm also a university teacher. Well, when we talk about corporate finance, when we look at capital budgeting, we say the purpose of investment is to maximize the interest of the shareholders. That's what we say. However, return on investment should not be the primary focus. I think it should be more of sustainability. Because there's no point you do something, you eat the whole cake, and you have nothing to eat tomorrow. So you should put the interest of the market, as a primary, primary focus. So every reinvestment that we make should be guided from project concept, the concept of what we have said, up to the time of realization. Thank you.
Thank you so much. China, with the government leading from the front in terms of property housing development, because look, if you have a 100-story building, residential, or 50-story building, 4 flats or 2 flats or whatever floor, now you're talking about the knock-on effect of such a property in terms of the entire economic value chain for a country. Job creation, small and medium enterprises, everyone else in the tool. And we look at other countries around the world. Do you think the government has what it takes to lead the real estate, a massive real estate project and development in Nigeria, or you folks in the private sector will be the one to lead it and ask the government to support you, as we've seen various attempts by government at various times in the past to do what you call low-cost housing, real estate. Now there is triple whammy of exchange rate inflation and interest rate that affordable food becomes more pressing for folks than affordable housing. Do you think government has what it takes? Yes. And if no, what more can the industry do? And what would you like the government to step up to the plate to resolve, to help unlock the value of what you folks in the industry have the capacity to deliver?
Okay, thank you. Good morning, everyone. I think that the reality is that the private sector must work very closely with the public sector. It seems like that there is openness to that, the willingness to listen and to try to implement. Now, there is nowhere in the world where the private housing, for instance, where the private sector goes it alone, even in the most advanced markets. Mr. Adiji said, there is nowhere, even in the US, you have a preponderance of government-sponsored entities participating in housing markets to support. So it's a partnership, like it or not, whether at the state level or at the federal level. All the stakeholders here, Wemabod, developers, they're all in a joint venture somehow with the government. So it's important to make it work. And it's important that there is constant engagement. I know that happens, but it's important that there's constant engagement and, there's people are listening on both sides. So I think, in terms of some of the ideas or some of the things that are possible, I think, we've talked about local production of building materials and construction materials. And that is really, I think that's a fundamental thing that needs to happen. We've talked about dollarization of the economy and pricing everything in dollars, bringing everything, importing building materials, all indexed to the dollar, and every day we're just going to see construction prices or construction costs go up. So, we talk about affordability or affordable housing. It's not really going to happen, but we'll put that aside for now. Unless we start to think about things like local production of building materials. And and in order to facilitate that, there are tools available to the government to do this. I know that now there's a big drive to raise revenue, or we must raise more taxes. But the reality is that the government also has to look long term. It's not about the short term. You are investing for the long term. So you need to create that. I don't like this word, but that enabling environment for people to come in and say that they want to manufacture glass, they want to manufacture the essentials. So those things need to be done by the government. The second thing is that talking about public sector participation, the government has to guarantee certain things. And I don't think there's any way really around that. Today, we have an upward trend of high interest rates. We have high inflation. Going to the bank has already had to borrow money is going to be increasingly difficult for real estate. So, if we are really serious about increasing supply of housing in whatever form, I think we have to look to the government to provide some form of guarantees. And there are examples of how to structure these things around the world and how to mitigate the government's risk. If it's well structured, well put together, the risk can be mitigated and limited. In Korea, when you look at the Korean housing industry and where they come from, every single part of the housing development value chain is guaranteed. Up to payment of rent, by the end users, by tenants, it's all guaranteed. So, you have a system that's working and quite safe. And also on that note, I think it's important to also consider mechanisms like land value capture. So, strategic planning to unlock value of land in different places. As an example, in South Korea, the Ministry of Land, Infrastructure and Transportation is integrated. So it's one ministry that works together to decide where infrastructure is going to go, so that you can unlock value, within the land, and it makes it more attractive. It makes it more attractive for the. We talked about affordable housing. When we're looking at that, whether we can make it economic, I don't know. But as part of development, in terms of planning, the government could make policy that there's a percentage of any development above a certain size that must go towards affordable or social housing. That is done in the UK, that's done in different regimes, across the world. So there's a lot that can happen. Another thing we should think about is effective capital mobilization. I think right now there are opportunities, not just in housing, in commercial markets. There are investors that sadly have come in here, lost money, but and are ready to let go of some of the assets. But we're in a situation where capital, the long-term capital that can come in and buy these things are not effectively mobilized. So I don't know, right now, pension funds can invest in real estate. They can invest through real estate investment trusts.
Yes.
But should we be thinking about allowing them to invest directly? Because when you think about it, housing is critical infrastructure. Housing is critical infrastructure. If we want to have sustainable cities, sustainable cities, housing is where workers go to sleep. So we need to think about it differently. It is infrastructure, and we need to be able to mobilize capital to go into these things.
Thank you very much, Mr. Larry. Thank you. Basically, dynamic exchange rates, inflation, interest rates in nature. These are financial market issues that we have to deal with in terms of how to survive in these very difficult times. And I'm sure you have an angle about what some of you industry should be doing. Those who are in real estate, whether you're trading, whether you're building, buying, buy or sell. My point for you is what can be done in this very difficult situation, and what we call very delicate balancing act, where it's difficult to predict where the exchange rate will go next, where a little bit of where the exchange rate goes next, interest rate, where does it go next. Some folks are saying the central bank will go 100 or 300 basis points next week. Some folks, if you are surprised. Well, Dr. I think we should just, perhaps we should just hold our fingers off the bottom on the FDR. What's your take on all of that?
Thank you.
And what impact do you think it will have?
Yeah, I mean, I would only speak to it as it impacts the sector. I think that I've heard a few things said from my co-panelists. The first one is collaboration and sharing risks. We talk a lot about this, we don't do enough. I can see the CEOs of a few real estate companies in this place. Scale is great, but scale is great when the risks are well shared. I think the sooner we start to talk to each other and to address the opportunities jointly, the better it will be for us. As for what is happening on the fiscal policy levels and so on, we need to just recognize that the decisions that are being made, or perhaps not even being made, are impacting us so greatly, and that if things don't change, or at least if we don't recognize the path, I think it's even more important that we even know the way we're going, first of all. The problem that we have, and I don't know if a lot of you share this, is just the fact that we actually don't know. I mean, if we know, we plan towards it, right? But there's so much uncertainty from not knowing that it seems to me like the only way around this is that nobody is pretending to be an island and doing things by themselves. We also need to become a force to be reckoned with. I use this example everywhere I speak. Please just check out this organization called SAPOA, because I know when they started. This is the South African Properties Owners Association. They took control of their investment in a manner that I don't think, at least in the African scene, I don't think a private organization has ever done that, to become so influential that I say that when they come, the government of South Africa sits on. There's too much in our hands. We've got assets by the billions and some even by the trillions that we cannot afford to sit and do nothing. So this is where I think that advocacy comes first of all by the fact that we all sit together and discuss. We all have the same pain points, by the way. You know, it can be to different degrees, but it's exactly the same thing that we're all feeling. So that for me is very important. We talk about risks and mitigations. Yes, those will not go away. We have to continue to manage the obvious risks. They tell us, oh, yeah, spread geography, spread sector and type, know your customer better. All of those things are clear and there. But there's also a role that we have to play in the sense that our customers too need to know us better. I believe that there is something to say for, even in these times, for some entities that are thriving, and the only reason they're thriving is because there is some level of confidence that remains in the ability of those entities to deliver what they said they would. And somehow, we all need to get there. I'm a little can't speak about dollars now. It's always been. That has been reinforced. Yes, I mean, so there's a conversations a few weeks ago about the fact that dollarizing is not right. However, we give the example of China all the time, and even India. The first thing that happened is that they started to manufacture, right? And we still don't do that. So whether we like it or not, we are a totally dollarized economy. And the sooner we face that fact and address how we can manage it, otherwise developers without tools. That's where we're actually getting there. I mean, what else can we do? Developers without tools, projects will suffer, contractors will not find work, suppliers will not sell. We're almost there now. There's no point closing our eyes to the obvious. Larry mentioned that government has an absolute role to play. Why are industries leaving this country? And today we are talking about setting up industries to produce what and how. What happened to the 25, 50-year-old entities that have left in the past 6 to 8 months? I'm concerned that if we're not the kings or the kingmakers, we're going to have this meeting again soon, and we'll still be talking about the same issues. For governments, we need to dialogue with governments. They're partners by force. And we need to make them do the things that they must do. And I don't know that the conversation to be polite. I don't even know. I think that we've got to the place where this just needs to happen. And I'm speaking to all of you large-scale developers, if you get together. There's so much force behind you that you can imagine, and push for what needs to be done. Otherwise, nothing will get done.
This is what we suggest that, but also the Ministry of Finance, perhaps the Debt Management Office, perhaps others. We have to talk about infrastructure bond. Maybe you do a housing bond. And I haven't heard anything about it. I don't know whether that comes to mind. Because what Kenya is just done in the last 1 month or 2 was to go to the market for 70 billion shillings locally. Subscription was about 408 billion. And they took 240 billion of that. Because they realized it's very important to get that fixed. So I don't see, we don't have up to 10 rates listed in the market. A few of folks in the industry have gone to very different DPU, UFU, NGX, and what have you. The pension fund is there, trillions in assets under management. How more creative would you folks want to be very quickly and say, look, the government can work together to create a bond which is related to housing? Can we go to the market straight away? Can we tap the pension? Can we tap insurance? Can we tap others? The energy is shaking his head. But let's give the microphone if you don't mind.
I will say very quickly that all those opportunities exist. All those parties that you mentioned know that those opportunities exist. But as soon as those discussions start, see, it has to get to a place where people recognize that there's no alternative. If you speak to the pension funds at the moment, they have ways around. I mean, I'm sorry to say this, but the barrier for success is relatively low. And they have investment opportunities outside the so-called more difficult areas. So, I mean, why invest in real estate in any form or fashion when we can put our money in government box and still get the returns that take us above the barrier? So, this is where
I don't want to think that, I'm sorry to respect the country, I don't want to think that there is no business or investment case any longer for real estate business in Nigeria.
There is, but in every country.
There is not
there is. There certainly is, but in every country, it is engineered by policies that people insist must work.
And that's what I'm saying. Perhaps the Ministry of Works, Housing, and others should make the rule.
Yes, we talk about that already.
So
many times when we have our meetings, so we call all the housing people that we know. I guess because the language of finance is not very clear to many people in the houses. So we need to educate ourselves, we've agreed, and we do need to sit with the right people, for sure.
Look, I think that will help. But I'll come to me for a very smaller fee, if that is what it is. It's really a big one. But I think I want you to cost cutting, making sure that you'll be laying off staff. I don't want you to do that. My job is not to ensure that everyone loses his job. I don't want to lose mine. So how could we be running through this very difficult time of the trilemma of the three rates?
All right, thank you. So I believe what we want me to respond to is risk around real estate investments and how to avoid it. But just like any business, the real estates, they have their own peculiar risk. When we look at financing, for instance, it's been about funding for quite a while. But let's assume the fund is over there. You need to know the costs of funding. You don't take up cost of capital that cannot match your return. If you raise a capital that's below your rate of return, certainly that business will not be sustainable. Number two, around funding is also when you go to the market to raise fund, they will certainly request for collateral, for you to get a fund. It's also an issue that needs to be addressed. And I know that it's not that the money is there. I mean, we talk of the pension fund is there. As I did a lot about the restrict them from taking real estate investment and the likes. But there are many places to get funding, but there are challenges in accessing those funding. And also, when you look at the market as well, the market risk is one thing for you to deliver the projects. It's another thing for you to get buyers who are willing to take off those products off you at the, in such a way that can make good returns. And even before you deliver too, we talk about the volatility in the markets. You have a project cost that you say, okay, this project will be delivered at this amount. But with the better funding, it is going to be nearly 3 times of what you have budgeted to win the development projects. And at the end of the day, you may not be able to get buyers to take it off you. So for me, what I think should be done, first is to identify the likely risk you might be facing when you are commencing a project. You need to identify those risks. You need to understand what those risks involve. Then another thing is assess those risks to know, one, the level of frequency and also the impacts that when they occur is going to make on you. And number 3, you need to benchmark those risks against your risk appetite. Okay, if it's outside your risk appetite, you either say, okay, I'm not going to accept this risk, I'm going to reject it. If you don't want to reject it, you can then do the risk sharing, the collaboration we're talking about, or you can transfer the risk to someone else. And the other thing you need to also do is to do scenario planning analysis, and this is very key. When you do scenario planning, is a tool that many times we use to look at how things will play out and what are the options that we should be looking at in managing our risk and remain in business. And I give an example. If you are looking at funding, for instance, and you discover that it's difficult for you to get funding, or you have other alternatives that are thrown at you, you need to take each of these options, look at the implications on your business, look at the implication on the return on the investment, and then analyze whether that is within your immediate risk appetite. And if it's not so, then what else do you do to get the kind of funding that we need to deliver on that project? So if you decide to accept or to move on with the project based on the scenario analysis you have done, then it will be obvious that at the end of the day, your business will be sustainable. Otherwise, you will have to also find alternatives as to what to do. So this is what I feel.
The market forces demand and supply. Remember, Mr. Manager, right? Okay, go ahead, please.
Even before the current situation of finances in this country, oftentimes we conduct market analysis, intelligence analysis, and ensure that we are able to compete commercially And it's important for us to do that. Because the reality of the situation we find ourselves is that while cost is going up, cost of running services pretty much going up, chances are that revenue currently is going southwards. And that is the situation we find ourselves. So we must have a comfortable situation where we can match the cost revenue and the bucket the cost profile and the revenue bucket that we have within the real estate sector. For Wemabod, it's always a very difficult thing to do because of the situation we find ourselves in, by virtue of the quality of the real estate asset that we have. However, when you look at the average in the industry, chances are that industry players will always look at the dynamics, the fundamentals of what your cost revenue is and how you can uptake your revenue bucket in such a way that there is no mismatch in the way you do your business. At the end of the day, this is not a social service. We do business to also be able to make money, and that's the reality of the situation we find ourselves. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Please give a round of applause. Should we open the doors to cement people? What should we do? What would you want the real estate industry? What's the message here?
I think we should open the door for cement. They have all their raw materials in here. There's no reason why they should be indexing the price of cement with dollars. So if that situation, the only thing is you have enough money, you have dollars, you have the balance of the however to show people to sustain it. And so I think the one of the things also should be dialogue, and I believe the Ministry of Work has started and Ministry of Commerce, they started dialoguing with them and they started saying that they will sit down together and bring the price of cement to the but there are no reasons for that. Like we said, we are not in business to make profit only. We must also impact the government. This is what they need all their money in Nigeria. Even the government access sold to them, they run it very well. I don't believe we should be indexing the thing with the yo-yo dollar situation in Nigeria. And concerning the issue of rent, it is time also to start indexing. When you index, we are indexing inflation. When you are collecting maybe 3,000 you are collecting, and your inflation is actually overseas. You see, they call living cost. They call living cost, So we should also do that. Let the tenant know. Well, it also depends on the sector. There are some areas where, like you said, midstream, upstream, downstream. Somebody was asking, what's that? Midstream, downstream. So there are some areas where there's price sensitive. Maybe the lower level. But for now, I think we should also index it with inflation and let people understand, why we are doing this, and that should be my.
Mr. Chairman, may I respectfully withdraw that question? Because now I'm going to shoot myself in the foot. Because if you index my rent to inflation right now, or exchange rate, I'm going to be the very serious.
That's what is actually losing. You are not indexing that. We are paying 3 naira now. Maybe by inflation, even the FX, what is going to have negative equity, and it's not. So you should expect in the letter,
I'll see you after this, please, just by the door here by the side, please. Just two of us go here. And thank you very much. Any one or two.
And I went to look at a couple of red brick factories, which actually the federal government had initiated many months ago. I think there's 6 or 7 of them across the country. They have privatized, sold some of them, and some of them are just left in ruins. So I went to the one that's in Abeokuta, and I met the person who bought it over, trying to start a business. The cost of running his kilns and burning the bricks, by the time we worked out the numbers, it was completely useless buying bricks to build affordable houses because the numbers are not. So that's the problem.
Correct. Yeah, correct. The one outside it will go on the way to whatever. In various states, also in ruins. I have been there at least twice in the last 5 years or so. last time was perfect. So I understand. But again, we need to just think outside the box a little bit. Would you mind if I give the microphone to a few interventions from the floor? Dr. Adele,
that those who have a fund or those who are in the practice, like Wemabod, like even the group of estate surveyors, can go to any state where there is availability of land, opportunity, and make it conducive by their proposal. You are not saying just build houses for living. Any design of such must be a mini city that will have other things that will attract even people to the place. One of the best things that such city can have is for them to site an institution there, probably a tertiary institution that will bring people there. Also to site probably agricultural processing there, it will attract people, and also to bring in some other things that will make the place a city on its own. Yes, that's exactly what China did. Yeah, do it in the bush, people will go there. Anywhere, people will go there. Then, Odua, the way I see Odua, when we were small, in primary school, secondary school, coming up in the 60s, 70s, is that Odua investment was the strength of Western Nigeria. If by my small calculation that around 85% strength of they can still now come together. Whether there is volatility or not volatility, come together, have a blueprint that will take to bring your governors together. If you go a chairman, call the governors together and say, please, I want to see you in the next, they will come. Bring them together, present it to them, have your own energy. Invest in your own energy, have your own energy for your state, solve your problems, and volatility will be sorted out. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yes, and I think that's where the affordability question comes into it, is how do people that they create these homes for, how do we afford it? One of the things that's missing is there's no savings again. The savings that existed in the early 70s no longer exist. So we have this pocket of money, which is called the pension funds, that they've been collecting. That's probably a few people in structured employment that have their pension. One of the questions I've been asking is, why don't we convert this to this initial deposit that the banks and mortgages are looking at? Why don't we, that fund is redundant. It's a saving, but it is, today it's been eroded. The value of this pension fund is being eroded. If it is converted immediately to a deposit, it goes to capital, straight. The value starts increasing once it's attached to that capital. So we need to start thinking in that direction. How do we recreate the opportunities for financing? That's number one. Number two, for security. We have issues with our police force and all these security forces. The first thing is that they have no homes. They don't even know where to live. We're talking of going to the rural area. Who's going to live there when they have nowhere to work? Let the government secure homes for them through the NHL that they're talking about, through their own pension funds, and then guarantee those homes when they're still in employment, through, even if it's the sovereign wealth fund. Because once it's attached to assets, real estate is one unique investment that does not lose value. It might lose value today, over time, it recovers its own strength. So it is a win-win situation for the government. But again, the government is not here to listen to all that we're talking about. They don't know, and even I said we are the government, we will one day cross to the other side and be taking the same decision we're complaining about. But something has to be done immediately to re-innovate the access and the opportunities for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I
think what I will dwell on is the issue of affordability. Because we've been talking about affordable housing, not just in Nigeria, but globally, for decades. And the question for us today is, how do we build affordable homes for Nigerians? And that, of course, will take me to the comment made earlier on. We must come back to the local. What material do we have here? How do we make or take advantage of those materials. If you are going to go into affordable housing in real terms, certainly it's not with imported building materials. So, and that also talks to the case of innovation. I mean, I just read a piece yesterday about a cement alternative that was created in fact, the company that was doing that has some visitors, and one of them jocularly said, "Are you sure this is a cement alternative or okay?" But it was white powder. And the lady is a lady actually. She said, "Well, have a feel of it." And of course, proven clearly, it's now being used as a replacement for cement in construction. There are two companies that do that now, for the report I read yesterday. So which means we must look inward and ask ourselves what materials are locally available that can be cement alternative. If we go by cement to start with and imported building materials, we can't deliver affordable housing. So thank you so very much.
Thank you very much. For building materials or for real estate goes really way beyond cement. And we need to create more industries, more jobs around it. Let's give ourselves a round of applause. Now let me say thank you to my parents. Please, the upstanding, please give a round of applause for step forward and please to join them is the chairman of Wemabod Limited, the group managing director. Please step forward as well for this first set of photographs. And of course okay, we have two other directors from Wemabod, Onikan and Mr. Agaroko, please. Please join them for Oluwaroko. And then we move to the awards part of the event very quickly. And then I would like to say a very big thank you to some other distinguished personalities in the room for this very great event, the Real Estate 2025. Mr. Stephen Jack, who is the Vice Chairman of the Estate Surveyors and Valuers Registration Board of Nigeria. Where are you in the room, sir? I've been looking for you. Please, let's put our hands together for him. We also have Mr. Taye Awofiroye, who is of the Trusted Advisors. Please put your hands together for him. Thank you very much. Thank you. We appreciate it. Mr. Taye Ojo of Etokbe and Tunde Consulting. This is a day for them. Thank you. Thank you. We appreciate that. And ESB Fumi Ashafa of LSDPC, Lagos State Development. Where is the LSDPC? Oh, thank you, madam. And then we will have ESB Titilayomi Salisu from Real Royal Professionals. Thank you very much for coming as well. Thank you, madam. And former ED of Wemabod Limited, Mr. Lawi Adeyemi. Good morning, thanks for coming in. And of course from Comics Nigeria Limited, who's also our sponsor, one of our sponsors. Thank you very much, all of you. Let me...
On behalf of Wemabod, we are privileged to present this award to you, which is for innovation, impact, real estate excellence. You see you everywhere. You see our person everywhere. And that's why we are. And thank you so much.
A round of applause, please, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much.
The team for this year's 2024 Real Estate Campaign, we had a lot of topics that we shortlisted, and as I was about taking the last decision, a few days to then, Dad needed to do some renovation in his house that it was meant to cost me $150,000, and I thought that I could afford that for my salary. And at that point that I was to take that decision, I got a call from the bricklayer and he said cement had increased, and as such, I will need to add additional 70,000. And then I just looked at the topics and it just came to me that this should be the topic for today's actually practical. On that note, I want, on behalf of the management, staff, and board of Wemabod Limited, I want to say a very big thank you to all of us for honoring our invitation, despite the effect of volatility on the fuel price yesterday, and we are surprised that we still have a full house today. And I want to take it that we've actually enjoyed today, and we've learned a lot. Personally, I've learned from the keynote speaker and from the panelists, and I do believe that we'll be able to implement those suggestions that have been made here and there. I want to thank all our sponsors who have partnered with us in getting this today to be a fruitful day. Let me thank